Aries Merritt, 2012 Olympic champion and world record holder, and you're watching Inside Athletics. And Otto Bolden is missing in action. He's not in his chair. He's still not here. It's getting dark.
My guest today on Inside Athletics is Aries Merritt of the United States. Last year, you had one of the most amazing seasons by a 110 hurdler ever. And then this year, immediate injury. Tell me what you've done to get back to the point where you were able to qualify for the U.S. team, and now you're 5 weeks away from the World Championships.
Well, it's been a complete struggle trying to get back into form. As you know, last year was such an amazing year,
Yeah.
and this year, as you said, has been nothing but injury. And so I'm just trying to get in shape. 5 weeks away, I'm very confident that I'll be in the form I need to be in to medal, hopefully win. But training's going well, and I can't complain. I just have to take it in stride and keep on knocking them out.
We spent a lot of time on television last year documenting your change from 8 steps to 7 steps before the first hurdle. How is it possible that you go from your whole life, your whole pro career, doing 8 steps, and all of a sudden, I can do 7, and that, results for you in the most amazing season you've ever had?
Well, it wasn't easy, that's
Yeah.
for sure. It was a lot of hard training and a lot of failure in practice.
When you failed at it, would it involve falling?
No,
Okay.
it didn't involve falling, but it involved really, really slow and long reachiness to the first hurdle, which is very slow.
Right.
And with 8 steps, you're quick and you're cutting down, and with 7 steps, there's no cut down. You're just driving the whole way. But last year, I got to a point where I could cut down into the first hurdle, which worked to my advantage. Obviously, I had an indoor world championship, so I was fresher the first 5 as I am now. And so it's, like I said, it's been a struggle trying to get back there, because people that I was murdering to that first hurdle, I'm like, what are you doing here with me? This
Right.
doesn't feel right. Why are you here? And so I just have a little bit of work to do. But the change from 7 to 8 steps is very difficult to do. Lolo Jones, the reason why she's able to do it is because she was bobsledding and she built up enormous amounts of power pulling that sled.
Right.
And so the same thing happens for us when we switch to 7 steps. It's the same amount of power output. You have to be powerful on each step. Your weaker leg becomes even with your most dominant leg. So that in turn helps you in between the hurdles as well, because
Right.
all the steps are even instead of one step being more powerful than the other.
Last year, world indoor champion, Olympic champion, and you cap off your season with an amazing world record. A lot of people thought it was the performance of the year, including the IAAF. Tell me a little bit about how, after that record has come down in such small increments, how you were able to, just smash it.
I don't know, it's magical. I really didn't realize I was running as fast as I was, because normally when I'm running these times, Richardson is right there with me and he goes with me. When I go, he goes. And so I'm like, okay, he's gonna come. And so when I was running and I noticed that he wasn't with me, I said, what the heck is going on? I was kind of in shock, but then I was like, okay, this must be really good. Just keep it up, don't mess up, don't mess this up, keep this, you got this. And I crossed the line and I looked over and I looked over again. I was like, what? And I just started going crazy, because you see 81 and you're like, what? Okay, it's gonna round up, and then it rounds down.
Yeah.
So it's like 80, I'm like, what? And I'm like looking at it and I'm looking at my age and I'm like, this can't be real. And so then I'm just yelling and screaming.
What is it that you learned, or you had to learn really quickly, when you started to put together those wins in 2012?
Well, I think that's typically just consistency in training. When you're as consistent as I was last year, the training was just great. I didn't get injured, and so I was able to train through. I had months and months of training, and before, every year leading into 2012, I would get hurt. I would pull my hamstring, I would tear my quad, I would hurt my ankle, I'd have a stress fracture. There's always something. And so now this injury is like, okay, well, I hurt my hamstring. I've dealt with it before. But before, it was like, oh my God, I hurt my hamstring. What am I doing? What do I need to do? And so now I'm a little bit more used to injury. But last year, it was just, the training was just so consistent, and I was in this zone, and it was Olympic year, and you want it so bad, and you want to perform on the biggest stage. And so there was that. Then there was obviously the 7 steps, and the training was good, and I changed my diet. And so I eliminated a lot of stuff. I leaned out a lot. And obviously I've kept the diet because I'm pretty lean right now. But I mean, it was a lot of things that helped my season. And I've always been a pretty consistent hurdler. In college, I was very consistent. I mean, 2006, if you go back, I ran 13:20, 13:20, 13:20. And then once I dipped into the teens in that world record race where Liu Xiang broke the world record in Lausanne, I was actually in that race, and I ran 12, 13:12. And then the next meet, I ran 13:15. And then the next meet, I ran 13:15. Then I ran 13:15 and 13:17.
So in other words, in your career, once you're at a point, you've always been able to string together times right there.
Exactly. So once I was at 12:93, it was no surprise to me that I was able to run 12:93. 12:93,
That's
12:93,
right.
and it was only a matter of time before I broke 12:93, and 12:92 at the Olympic Games was. I was happy, but I was disappointed because I was like, God, I really wanted to go 12:8 something at the Olympics. That would have been great.
Now, if you look around this sport, there's so many people that train in a group, and some of them train in super groups. And yet, you train all by yourself. You don't have another hurdler lining up next to you on a day-to-day basis, and you never have.
I never have.
How is it that you have been able to run 700s faster than anybody in history, and you're training against ghosts in practice every day?
Well, I don't know. I think it's a maturity thing.
Yeah.
When I first went to University of Tennessee, Vince Anderson was my coach.
Right.
He coached Justin Gatlin, Leonard Scott. He coached a lot of great people, and he coached me to be a independent athlete. He taught me not to be dependent on a coach. And a lot of people are dependent on their coach. Without their coach, they can't perform.
Right.
And so the first half of my career, well, all of my career leading up until this point, I have my coach with me now, but I never had a coach with me. And so I was always able to just know and feel what I'm supposed to do. So I think that has a lot to do with it.
About 5 weeks out before the day that you have to run your first round at the World Championships, you look at the landscape, and the landscape has changed a little bit in the hurdles because you're coming back from injury. Jason Richardson is not quite where he was, say, at the Olympic trials last year. Where does your confidence come from in terms of, I have 5 weeks and that's enough time? Is there any sort of a panic in you at all that, you know what, it may not be enough time?
Well, of course there's that panic in the back of your mind. You're like,
How
oh my
much?
God. Maybe about a 50% panic.
Okay.
It's like, oh my God, am I gonna be ready for this?
Right.
And then there's another 50% of me that you'll be fine. You've run 12:80. A lot of your competitors have never seen 12:8. So, I mean, you just have to look at it like that and take it one step at a time. I was talking to Brooks Johnson, and he told me, look, you run 12:80. You can come out there on muscle memory alone and just run faster than all these jokers. And
He's
so
right.
I'm like, oh my God. And I also talked to Colin, and he told me the same thing. He's like, look.
Colin Jackson?
Yes. Colin told me, just stay patient. It'll come. You know what you can do. You just need to get yourself sharp, get some training under your belt, and we'll see the times. No one's really shocked by what you do at this point because you've already done something so amazing. So I'm looking at and listening to things that people are saying. I'm like, okay, I have plenty of time. And then my coach tells me, obviously, we'll be ready. We've been training through these meets, and I'm not running the times that people want to see, but it's all for the better. It's all for that world championship. And so I'm training through in hopes that I can be ready to string together 3 strong races, because when I come out, I'm coming out. Just
Right.
like at the Olympic Games, no games were played. First round, 13:07. Like, I'm not playing games. So we're trying to do that same thing, have that same mentality going towards the World Championships.
I think your event is the event that I hate to watch the most with civilians sitting next to me. Because when you guys start and hurdles start hitting the ground, people always say the same thing. How is it? Hey, he's cheating. How is he getting away? He's just knocking down the hurdles. Tell me something as a hurdler that you could say to somebody who has never seen your event before that may give them a sense of what it's like to jump over 10 42-inch barriers for a living. What does that even feel like?
Well, it feels like, okay, if I hit this hurdle, I could be off balance. If I nip this hurdle, it can cost me a race. It's really, really technical. And if you hit the hurdle in the slightest bit and come down at the slightest angle wrong, you
Right.
can twist your ankle. You'll be done for the season. If you come down wrong just slightly with your trail leg, if your trail leg doesn't finish, you're done for the season because you've went into someone else's lane, you've hit someone. That means your whole rhythm is gone. Hurdles is one of those events. It's really tricky. If you don't get out in front and control the race and are leading it, it's really hard to dictate what's going to happen. But then again, you never know because it's the hurdles. And people say hurdles is you're racing against people. You're really not racing against anybody. You're racing against those barriers because if you mess up over one hurdle, you're kaput, you're done.
Well, I hope you come all the way back in time for the World Championships. I think
That is
you
the
being
plan.
in there at 100% will make it a better race for all the fans. And thanks for joining me.
No problem.
All right.